Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. So, welcome back to another podcast of From Shadows of Strength. I'm Tyson, and Jay is in the room with me, and you'll hear from him along the way. So, today we are going to discuss stress and the need for self care as stress rises and how to apply it to your day to day life. So, Jay, we all know that as men, stress is something we deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's everywhere. It's work stress, it's home stress, it's financial stress, it's relationship stress. And most of us as men, I think, carry all of these things, or at least a few of these things. And we don't really have a system, you could say, of managing it. When stress rises, the brain is looking for fast relief. It's looking for an out, a way to cope with that stress rising. So, we had Casper, a psychotherapist who explained that when stress goes up, our need for self-care goes up, and it's usually where that bad self-care comes in, and that's that drinking, the drugs, the gambling, the food, pornography, scrolling, whatever mechanism we default to in order to kind of balance that out. So all of it works, to a degree, for an hour. Any of those coping mechanisms makes you feel better, provides a little bit of a dopamine release and maybe a bit of an escape. But the problem is, after that hour or however long the escape is for, problem's still there. It doesn't go away. And now you have added a second problem to the mix, or maybe even a third problem. Because a lot of the time, vices don't just come in singles, they come in pairs. A lot of people, drink, smoke a joint, doom scroll. Or then if you're smoking a joint, I remember when I was smoking weed, straight for the munchies after. So, and munchies are never like, oh, I'm craving chicken breast and sweet potato. No, it's like, what fast food places around here that's still open right now? And when I smoked weed, we didn't have Uber Eats. We had to walk or drive to whatever convenience store. So now it's, again, you add another layer of a problem where you don't have to go anywhere. You just order the fast food, the comfort food directly to you. So, this is not maybe a dramatic collapse. It's, when it comes to stress, it's actually a slow burn, if I were to compare it to something, right? It's a slow erosion of your ability to function, for your ability to show up at work, at home, as a father, as a partner to your wife. Most men, they don't notice it until they're running on empty. So, Jay, a question for you. When your stress is at let's say its highest point. So whether you want to talk about this in the military or in your day-to-day life now, I know that's a little bit different. You're managing it way better. Or in maybe the dark times of your life, when it was at its highest, what was the first thing you would reach for? And would you say it was actually helping?
Yeah, like at the dark times for me, it was like the gym, like working out angry, was very, very good for me. Like that's what I find help with stress. But I saw some of the unbelievable different varieties of stress in the military with people I worked with. There was people who gained 50 pounds. There was people who lost 50 pounds. There was people where you could see it in their face, like they would almost age over a month. And then there was people that were so stressed, but when you look down, you could never tell because they could hide it so well and everything else. And then, yeah, there was the abundance of self-medicators. There was like everybody, I find, especially in the military, you see so much, everybody handles it differently, but it's affecting all of us the same way. We have the anxiety, you feel like you have an ulcer in your stomach because it's always there. That pain's always there. I see guys when they're on very stressed, they're popping Tums like they're Tic Tacs just to help with the anxiety and the stress and everything. And I find a key symbol is you see it in the face. Like guys at work would know when I was stressed because I wore it on my face. Like you could see where I wore it on my face. And there was a lot of times I would come home, even after the gym, I thought would help me with stress, and I'd be so irritable, so irritable. It's like you walk through the door pissed off, you know? And no matter what's happening. You could burn a little bit of food, or you could just stub your toe in something, or something easily doesn't work at home, and you just lose it. It's that anger part in the guy that the stress just takes over, and you work in the garage and you just smash something, or you scream or whatever, and then people look at you like, what's wrong with you? But they don't understand you've been holding it in all day long, or for weeks or months, depending on what you're doing. Like you say, financial, that is one of the worst, I think, stresses anybody has in their life, is financial stress, because it never goes away. You dream about it, you sleep about it, it wakes you up at night, everything. And then one day if you don't have any healthy outcomes or anything, you just lose it and you just snap out of nowhere. That's what we found the most in military, whether it was just a lot of guys were married with kids, plus you're trying to do a military job, where you're on call, just that family stress. And then, maybe there's cars breaking down and stuff like that. The financial stress is just, yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to ramble. It's just, I've seen so
It's all
much of
good.
it, but if guys don't have a healthy outlet, I've seen guys, like, just from stress, take their lives or quit the military or make horrible, horrible, bad decisions and trying to get rich quick by putting all their money in Bitcoin, thinking they can become successful and then they can retire a happy life. But then they lose the money, or they make bad decisions on buying a fancy car that they think will make them happy. So many people I know will buy nice things or fancy things thinking it'll take the stress away. And it does for 2, 3 days. But then that car payment comes in, or whatever payment you did, whether you bought anything, a new boat, a new four-wheeler, a new jet ski, and then the payment comes in, and then the maintenance bill and everything, and you just add more and more. So people look for that, like you say, quick fix, that dopamine release, but it doesn't get rid of stress. It's just masking it a little bit.
It's actually interesting you brought in the buying things, because that's one I didn't put in there. But you're like, I actually remember when I was incarcerated, my form of self-care was training. I mean, I still trained, but then I was eating. I couldn't smoke weed anymore. So, well, I would just eat my emotions. And then the other thing I was really hooked on was buying stuff. So, we don't make a lot of money, but we do work in prison, and we're provided with a bit of compensation for our work. On average, the most an inmate can make every 2 weeks. I think I was working 3 different jobs, 1 full-time, 2 part-time jobs in the prison, in order to earn as much as I could when I was in maximum security. And I think I was earning about $81 every 2 weeks. Now, I know a person who's free, you're like, oh, well, that's like jack shit. It's not a lot of money, but in prison, that was a decent, like, a little bit of earning. You could have your canteen and you could have a little bit for spending. So I was always buying something. Most of the time I was buying CDs. I had lost my music collection when I went into prison. My ex didn't send me any of my CDs in. So I was busy trying to rebuild all the music I had lost. And that was, something I really cherished while I was serving time, was listening to music, that, and, watching some TV to escape. So almost every other week when we would get our pay in, I would order a CD. And I'd just be so excited, so happy. Oh, I'm going to get a CD, and I'm going to get a CD. And just like you said, right, 2-3 days, you got the CD. I'm playing it in my cell. I'm playing it nonstop, and feels good, brings back some memories from when I was, from simpler and easier times. And within 3 days, it's like, okay, what's the next album I'm going to order? What's the next one I'm going to order? What's the next one I'm going to order? Right. And it was forever chasing this feel good that just left me feeling hollow. And like, it wasn't until I actually started to work on myself, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but it wasn't until I actually started to fix the issue where I realized, wait a minute, I'm just trying to fill a void here. And that's exactly what you saw in your day-to-day life. Because again, prison and military, we've had this discussion before. It's eerily similar on how we cope while we're in there. you're at a distance. I mean, again, where you'll see it, a big similarity when it comes to prison and military. You said, like you're talking with your family, maybe you're deployed overseas, you're talking with your spouse, she's back at home with the kids or whatever, and she's going through some kind of stress. Your car breaks down, plumbing maybe, or the roof, or something needs to be done back at home, and you're all the way over there and you can't take care of it. And as a man, that's usually where we feel, hey, I need to be there. I need to make sure this goes well. This shouldn't fall on my wife, or, like I'm not fulfilling my role. And it just adds to the stress, because I would see guys happen all the time because they can't do what they need to do for their family while they're incarcerated. And it just compounds. And I've seen guys in prison either handle it through homemade brew, which is not something you want to be drinking. And they're handling it through drugs, right? There's tons of drugs available in prison, whether it's smuggled in, or I don't want to tell you the gross stories I've heard of guys sharing their medication. It's friggin' gross. But that, or gambling, or buying stuff like myself. Rarely are they finding a healthy coping mechanism or a healthy mechanism to manage the stress. So, Jay, given that, do you think men, and I think we already know the answer to this, but do you think that men are getting better or worse at asking for help when that pressure builds?
It was funny. We were going through a good time that I looked at statistics where men were actually getting better. But as soon as they legalized marijuana, we got worse. As soon as we legalized it, it went to shit. And it went to shit in the military, and it's gone to shit everywhere. Because you can just gummy your stress away. You don't even have to smoke it anymore. Nobody's got to sell it or smell it, sorry. You can just, at night, you take a couple gummies. You can have the CBD ones or the THC or the numbing or whatever you want. But now people can just gummy their nights away, and then they'll deal with the stress in the morning. And it's getting to a point, especially now in the military, guys are taking gummies during the day, during their work day. And they would just take, you start off with a small one, as I would say to you, take the edge off when I had a drink back in the day, you just have a little to take the edge off. But now that they've legalized marijuana and gummies and stuff, which has helped a lot of people, but it's made men think they can self-medicate their stress, And so we were getting better. And now I find, and it's just gotten worse, and it's just such available. Like if you drive, there's a military base in Petawawa. And if you drive down this little town in Petawawa, you'll see more car dealerships selling trucks and marijuana stores than I've ever seen in my life. Because that's
they know their market.
Exactly. They know when guys are stressed, they want a new car or truck, and they want some gummies. And that's why I think per capita, per person, is probably one of the highest populated car dealerships and marijuana stores in this small little military base town. Because guys are always stressed, strung out, tired, working, whatever, and they want the quick fix dopamine, Yeah,
it's that Band-Aid for the bullet hole.
Exactly.
Right.
And so guys are like, well, why would I talk? I could just take the gummy. I just need a couple gummies and I'll be fine. Helps me de-stress. Everybody thinks it de-stresses you. It doesn't de-stress you. It just puts it in the closet. All you're doing is put it in the closet. It's still there. And the closet's just filling and filling. And look what happened to me. My closet door busted wide open. And everything came falling out. Next, I'm
how
at
many
the
bodies
hospital.
did you put in there?
Like how many I wanted to put in there over my stressful time? And then my closet door fell off the hinges and I'm in the hospital, and that's what it's going to do to people. And it's we think we can just put it in the closet and eventually if we close the door, eventually it'll just go away, but it doesn't.
Or we'll get to it tomorrow. I think that's the other thing too, right? Is like later. I don't have time for it now, later. The thing is that later never happens because you just get so conditioned to managing your stress that way that you're just trying to get through the day till tomorrow. I'll get through. Okay. And you wake up, I don't have time today. And I think that's the sad thing as men is we don't realize that it's that slow burn, as I said, right? The house isn't on fire. It's just the room, right? The room we're in, but we've been conditioned to that feeling. Where it's in our mind on the way to work, right? We're thinking about our stress, like you said, financial, especially, I think is one of the big ones that so many people are facing right now.
Yeah.
They're they've kind of built a life on a house of cards, right? And they're going to a job they don't like. They have kind of, maybe the wrong people around them. Their social circle maybe isn't healthy as well. Right. So if you're in a group of friends and everyone drinks to escape the week's problems, and of course as men we don't talk about our problems in a group social setting, as anyone, well, you're a pussy, so stop being a pussy, so you don't talk about it, you joke about it, no deep conversations are had, right? And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then who suffers? Well, you're suffering, which in turn, as they say, shit rolls downhill. So if you're suffering, it goes down to your wife, it goes down to your kids. If you're a boss, it goes down to your employees. Your business suffers. Everything suffers. So like stress, I mean, we all know this. Stress can cause or at least really increase depression. So if you already are predisposed to this, and a lot of people are, well, that's just going to ramp things up. And again, well, I'll just have a gummy, like you said, right? I'll just have a drink. Oh, I'm just gonna eat. Feel better. Take the edge off. There we go. Wake up tomorrow, same shit, same thing, same feeling. And most people's routine too. And I know you've probably witnessed this while in the military, right? Most people's morning routine is, and I've talked about this so much. Winning the morning, that first hour is so important. Is not one that sets them up for success, right? And by that, I mean, it's not putting them in a good mental state, right? Your morning routine, for the most part, not yours, Jay, but most of our listeners, regretfully, their morning routine is optimized for comfort, not for performance, right? They wake up, it's snooze, scroll, shower, maybe coffee, scroll again, and then race to get out the door and drive to work in an already aggravated state. I mean, when you're scrolling, for the most part, I think when people wake up, open their phone, start scrolling or start looking at messages or emails, that's not putting them in a good mental state. Because as soon as they wake up, they're either focusing on the problems of the day ahead because of the email or the message they received from someone at work that they maybe didn't get to or was sent in the middle of the night, or they're on social media. And the majority of the stuff that pops into our feed, whether we want it to or not, is not positive. Right? It's some kind of thing that's going on in the world, whether it's right next door to us in the US or across the seas. We're seeing gas prices go up, all these things are getting more expensive, and that's the first thing you see. So what does that do for your mental health? What does that do for your stress? Well, getting higher. And that morning routine, it wasn't designed. That's just people running on default. And regretfully, as society has progressed, right, we have all this access that's on, the tip of our fingers. We'll become a slave to this, slave to our phone. And that morning routine will either make or break you. So this is why I always encourage all the guys I work with, like, design a morning routine and your day is going to follow that morning routine. So to give the listeners, if you've never heard me talk about this, I'm going to give you my go-to morning routine when it comes to all the men that I work with. And one that I actually started to a degree. It was obviously a little bit different while I was incarcerated, but that's where I learned the importance of a morning routine. Because while I was incarcerated, the only thing I could control was what I did. So that first hour, I would wake up an hour before my cell door would pop. So that first hour was spent doing what I could do, so that when I walked out into the range, it didn't matter if the guy beside me had been denied parole or got bad news from his PO or got bad news from home or was just having a really bad day, I managed my emotions. And in doing so, my setting a reasonable expectation for what I needed to do for the day ahead. So whatever happened around me had, I'd say, less of a negative impact on my mental and physical well-being because I spent that first hour looking after myself. So again, protect your first hour, guys. Not sometimes, always. So that first hour when you wake up, understand it's sacred. So I don't want any meetings, calls, emails, no dopamine hits. So no opening up your phone and scrolling, none of that. Delay gratification for that first hour. What I want you to do is hydrate and then do some exercise. I don't care if it's a 20 or 30-minute walk. Go out and move. Get some fresh air if you can. You know, I get if it's pouring rain or minus 30, you might not have the incentive to want to go out in that kind of weather, but go out and move. And again, if it's not great outside, you can always do something inside. You can do some mobility work. You could do some push-ups. Do something. And if you have maybe a morning workout, go get that in. You don't need to do 60 to 90 minutes of exercise every day. Just move a little bit in the morning. 20 minutes of something is better than 60 minutes of nothing. Then I always recommend take some time to do gratitude, especially if you're walking. You know, habit stacking is such a great thing. You wake up, hydrate, walk, gratitude. I do gratitude again, like I said, while I'm walking. I go through literally a list of everything in my life that I'm grateful for because I have a lot to be grateful for. But for guys that aren't practiced in gratitude, name 3 things. But don't just say like, oh, I'm grateful for my home and I'm grateful for my marriage. I'm grateful for my kids. Like, why are you grateful for these 3 things? How has it contributed to your life? How has that benefited you? Really be specific in why you're grateful for whatever you're grateful for. And that shifts your mindset from scarcity, especially again in this kind of economy, shifts it away from scarcity and to abundance. And if you look at the studies on that shift, it's huge. It's everything. And it really does help with stress management. After the gratitude, I love to do an alignment with who I need to be for the day. So for me, it's always, you know, being a servant of God. That's always been a big one for me. And again, I'm not saying you have to believe in a higher power. It just might be trying to find some kind of center within yourself. For me as well, it's being a good husband, being a coach, being a mentor. Those are my 4 daily things that I need to align with. And it's not just, again, acknowledging what I need to do. It's how do I go about doing those? Every day I reset that alignment just to make sure I'm always lining up what I need to do with who I am and who I'm continuing to be. That identity thing is really important, guys. After that, I visualize and I manifest. I think about where am I right now? Where do I want to be 6 months down the road? Where do I want to be a year down the road? And how do I get there? What do I need to do today, tomorrow, a week from now in order for me to get there? If you're not planning to move forward, you're going to stay stuck where you are. So anyways, that's just some tips for the morning routine. So again, delay gratification, hydrate, exercise, some kind of form of exercise, gratitude, visualize and manifest, and of course, fuel for the day. Eat a good breakfast. So Jay, with all that stuff that I kind of went off on for the tips I gave my guy, what do you find is a real benefit for you to kind of win the morning or win the day?
Yeah, don't read the news. Don't read the news first thing in the morning at all. Don't even care what's going on with everything in the world and stuff like that. Like this was like 20 years ago. I remember a guy told me that in the military. He's like, you want to survive the day? He's like, don't read the news first thing in the morning. And I asked him why, and he's like, you know, the media came out on one of our military exercises and stuff, and we were doing this good news story. Like we were helping these people wherever we were, food and all that. And the press didn't do anything about it. Like didn't even write a story about it. And he asked the guy the next day, he's like, why didn't you guys talk about this? He's like, well, you want my honest opinion? And he's like, yeah. He's like, good news is no news. He's like, what sells papers and what sells ratings is bad news. And so you think they're putting stuff that you want to know on TV? They're not. They're just trying to get you worked up. They're trying to get you involved. They want you to go on your phone and comment. They're trying to rage bait you or clickbait, whatever it's called nowadays. They
Both,
want
I
that.
guess.
Yeah. They want you in that. So don't fall for it. And there's a group of us, like me, you, a Cal, who I walk beside on the treadmill and stuff. We're all anti-news people first thing in the morning. Like, I'll find out the news when I go home and I've had my supper at the end of the day after work and everything else. Then I'll look at the news and stuff, but I'll pick and choose definitely what I want to read or what I want to see. You know, don't go down the rabbit holes. Don't get into all that worked up. So I like doing that in the morning. And I try different stuff. There's sometimes I try journaling, but sometimes I have trouble with it. So sometimes I prefer, what do you call it? When you close your eyes, what do you call it? Sorry.
Just like meditation?
Meditation.
Kind of reflection?
Yeah. So I like to close my eyes. I work on my breathing. I'll do my deep breaths. I kind of meditate. I just try to get out all the bad thoughts. Since you taught me that whole anxiety last 90 seconds, I've been really using that. Actually, that's actually been a good one to help me. I'll be like, okay, you got 90 seconds, and then you're out, and then it's mine again. I'm not letting it repeat. I'm not letting it take more of my time than the 90 seconds it's allowed. So I do that, and like you say, Tyson and I are a little different. I like to intermittent fast. I like to work out in a fasted state, but I still hydrate. I still have a banana and stuff like that. I just, I don't have a big breakfast. It just, all the years in the military being active in the morning, the food just never stayed in me. So, I like to eat afterwards. I like to have all my protein and my medication and my pills. I usually like to take that after I work out. That way it doesn't make me nauseous or anything. But yeah, it's just about, I find the more you can start your day with peace, the longer the peace will take you through the day. If you started with chaos, the chaos will follow you all day long.
We're going to be more susceptible to it, right? If you're in a rush, you're running, and this is the problem, right? You don't plan the day. This is what I talked about just a couple of minutes ago. You don't plan what you're going to do. You run out the door in a hurry. Everything is going to set you off. Right? And if you're driving and you watch how people are driving, cutting each other off and like not wanting to let someone in, and for whatever their reason is, it's just, you're watching that and you're like, my God, you can tell these people are in such an aggravated stress state. And then like, you're doing something like that, you're just adding to it. Like, does letting that person go in front of you, does it really change your day to let that person in? But now you just want to cut them off. And now that person's even more determined to cut in front of you. And you just see these two idiots in front of you doing this. And it's like, well, now this 2-minute interaction is most likely going to ruin their day. For what? You have so much already on your plate as a man. Do you really want to compound it and add to it by playing bumper jackass? Like, figure it out, guys. It makes no sense. Don't allow 2 minutes to ruin 24 hours. And again, this is where how you start your day is going to allow you to either be more active in your approach to things, respond more proactively, or you're going to be more reactive. You're going to be impulsive. You're going to do things that later on you're going to be like, oh man, why'd I do that? That was dumb. So develop a plan. Develop a system. I mean, I was given a correctional plan. I've talked about this, but given a correctional plan as soon as I walked into prison. Now, I would never have gotten my freedom had I not been given a plan. Right? And that plan, it just outlined the steps that I needed to follow on a daily basis, even on the days I didn't want to, even on the days I wanted to run away from it. If I followed those steps, I would gain my freedom. Now, there was no guarantees as a lifer that I'm going to get my freedom, but it doesn't ensure my chances. It doesn't ensure, it increases, I should say, my chances of gaining my freedom, so long as I was adhering to it. So, guys, there's no being perfect here. No one's asking you to be perfect. You're going to have off days, off mornings, whatever it is. But that's a need of having a proper system in place, a proper morning routine in place, to have a good system of self-care. And that's kind of the next one to get into, is I call this the well of self-care. Now, again, this is something I've briefly talked about on other podcasts, but today I actually brought my well. I brought my bowl. So,
My bowl.
yeah, well, regretfully, I don't have another form of well. So the well of self-care is going to be this large blue bowl. Hopefully this gets into the screen. Actually, I'll move the mic over just a bit so that way I can have it in front. So I'm going to use my coffee cup. My wife got me a really pretty one with a T on it. So this coffee cup is the representation of myself. So ideally, as men, we want a well of self-care. But more often than not, we're only focusing on maybe one or two forms of self-care. So if we're going to look at self-care as a whole, we have to understand that there are 5 areas that, as men, that we need to address. And women too, if we have any female listeners, this applies to you as well. So we have the physical, right? So that's going to be movement, so exercise, sleep, nutrition, that form of self-care I think most people are more familiar with. Then you have the mental. So what are you feeding your mind? Again, this is where we talked about social media. Are you going onto social media or the news and the negative forms of mental self-care? So what you put in your mind is what's going to come out of it. Then there's the emotional, right? Are you processing what you're feeling, or are you burying it? Buried emotions, they don't disappear, they compound, they get worse. And Jay, you and I know a lot about trying to shove everything in the closet until there's no more room and the bodies start to fall out. And then it's mayhem. And then once the bodies are out, now you have no choice but to address it. That's a whole other, I feel like that's a whole other podcast. And then you have your spiritual. So spiritual, spiritual, again, this isn't about if you believe in God or not. If you don't, look, that's up to you. But spiritual is going to also be what your purpose is. What's your alignment? That's why I talked about alignment earlier, right? Connection, at least, to something bigger than just the day-to-day grind. It just means meaning, right? What's your meaning in life? Then, of course, there's social. That's the last one. That's the 5th one. So who are you around? Isolation is obviously one of the fastest ways for stress to become a crisis. And Jay, I'm sure you've seen that in prison. When guys isolate, it gets probably pretty bad. So as men, we need real, but here's the caveat, a healthy social connection. And that, again, can be hard. So if you're looking at self-care, and for myself, and I think, Jay, you could maybe relate to this, before I was incarcerated, my form of self-care was the gym. So that would be arguably the healthy one I had, but then I had all these negative ones. But the problem is, if this is you, now men, when we talk about the stress we're facing in life, I mentioned quite a few. So we don't usually just have one stress. We have multiple stresses: work stress, financial stress, family stress, whatever it is, personal things we're dealing with. So if this is us, we need this cup to be filled, because with all these fires going on around us, we have to be putting out multiple fires at a time, right? As they come up during the day. The thing is, if you only have one form of healthy self-care, this is your well. This is what you're stuck with, right? Because you can only go to the gym You can only sleep and you can only eat so much. So if you're only focused on your physical self-care, which is I think where most people put their focus, it's measurable. I mean, it's admirable that you're doing something, but this is what you're left with. You're left with a very small well, because all the other forms of self-care, all the other needs that you have are not being met. So now you're trying to get your cup in there. Well, look, you can barely get it in there. You're barely going to have anything in this. So you might be able to address one or two problems. And then the rest of the day, you got nothing left in the tank. So what happens? Well, I don't have anything to put the fires out. So now stress is just going to go up. It's going to go up, going to go up. Well, I need to put the fire out. So I just need relief now. Now comes the Band-Aid for the bullet hole analogy. Now comes the alcohol, the snacking, the food, the scrolling, the joint, the gummies, the gambling, the porn, whatever it is. But if we work at developing systems where we have a well, holy crap. Every single day you can dip in, right? Cup gets all the way in there, comes up full. So that's why for me, when I kind of put two and two together when I was incarcerated, that it was more than just working out, because I was working out, but I was still miserable. I was in shape, but I didn't really have anything to show for it. There's no deeper fulfillment. I felt empty inside. I guess that's the best way I could put it. Jay, I'm sure you felt that void at some point in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. For every good thing I did a bad thing to counter it. You know what I mean? I went to the gym, but I drank. I went out every weekend and partied like it was my first weekend out, you know? For every good meal I ate 2 fast food meals. You know, for every night I got 8 hours of sleep, there was a couple nights I was running on 3-4 hours. So, like you say, like, it's not all sabotage, but you're basically counteracting any good that you're doing to yourself, you know? And then, like, I understand when we first move out of the house, we go a little crazy. We want to party. We don't want these rules anymore. We hate society and the government and the laws and the taxes. And we're like, screw this, man. I'm living my life. And no one's telling me otherwise, you know? And then you just realize, you know, the world is going to win. You're not. You know, there's shit in place that for society, and you're just going to have to deal with it and pay taxes as this and stuff. And it stresses everybody out. But I mean, if you let that dominate your life, you are never going to have a good life, you know? And if you keep sabotaging every good thing you do with the bad thing, you're never going to get out of that rut, that hole, you know? So it's just, if you just stop the little bad things and maybe just start with like just a week of all just good things for you. And then at the end of that week, you'll be like, wow, I actually feel a little bit better. Like I actually feel like I have a little bit more energy. I don't feel as strung out. I'm not popping Tums from my friggin' ulcer that I feel like I'm giving myself and stuff like that. You actually start feeling a little bit better. And then you try to say to yourself, you know what? Let me try another week. Let me try 2 weeks of this straight. And then I think it was you that said, like, what is it? 3 weeks to develop something, and then.
So 3 weeks, you have the extinction burst. So that's where you're going to get that last, and I won't say the last, but you're going to get probably the hardest pull to go back to your former ways. Your brain is going to be like, no, don't do this. This is too hard. You can't do this. It wants to stay where it is. And that's where most people end up quitting and giving up. But if you can hold on till that little extinction burst happens, which is anywhere from 2 to 3 days, usually, where that craving for maybe your coping, so alcohol, smoking, drugs, gambling, whatever it is, you know, you're snacking. If you can get past that, usually it starts to get much easier. There's always going to be, along the way, there's always going to be an opportunity or a craving that's going to flare up, but not like that third week. That's the one that's the hardest to manage, because the more you do this, the more it becomes a part of your identity. And yeah, you're right. Like when we're young, we tend to go a little bit wild, and it's sad because as we get older, we forget, I think sometimes, that we're not 20 anymore, but we're still behaving like like teenage kids, like young men. I don't know how many guys I've worked with that still lash out in anger and throw almost like temper tantrums when they were kids. Like that's not grown man. That's not how you should manage your emotions. You know, you can feel angry. There's nothing wrong with that. But stop feeding it. Like men need to stop allowing their emotions to control what they do. Regulate yourself. So that's why it's so important, again, have the well. So if you can't get to the gym, that's okay. Did you get to go for a walk? Awesome. If you don't, maybe it's just a day where you can't get any exercise in. Okay. So what else can you do? Well, gratitude takes literally 2 minutes. Breathing takes 3 minutes. You can write something down, whether it's journaling or, again, writing down the things you're grateful for. There's visualization, there's reflection. Spend a few minutes reading or even listening to a podcast or an audiobook.
Yeah,
But
the
something that
audiobook.
you're learning. Yeah.
Yeah, I've come hooked with those audiobooks, and even it's weird. I even get relaxed. Listen, this may make me sound weird, but like crime podcast or something. I listen to this one. It's called Murder with My Husband.
Okay.
Girl just talks about like old cases and how the cops solved them and all this sort of stuff, and it's just interesting. I don't know. I just kind of get in my zone. I go for a walk, or I'm on my step machine downstairs or outside. And I'm just listening to this, and before I know it, I've walked 7,000 steps, and an hour's gone by, and I'm relaxed. I'm doing my thing, or I'm listening to an audio book on something or a different podcast. Now, some podcasts, I want people to know, some of them are there just to get you fired up, just to get, stir
They
shit
might
up.
not contribute to your mental health.
Yeah. So make sure you're listening to one that works for you, whether it's a murder mystery, whether it's, I don't know, like there's so many podcasts out there, but whether it's something that like interests you, something that's like, oh, this is intriguing, or there's people that talk about vacations, where to go, sites they've done. There's all sorts of podcasts out there. Just listen to one that helps you, whether it's even fixing old radios, working on motorcycles, like anything out there. You can find stuff that suits you, that helps you, that'll bring you down, that'll keep you calm, that'll just find that inner peace that we talk about all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big one, right? Where we all want to be happy, but no one realizes that happiness comes from being peaceful.
Yeah. Like I've never been more happy now that I've found inner peace. Like I've jumped out of planes and had the rush, and scuba dived and had the rush, whatever. Now I was excited and all that, but I've never been as happy in my life as when I've been calm. And the more calm I am, the more calm my life is, and the more calm everything is around me, the happier I've been. Like chaos doesn't equal happiness. It doesn't.
See, it's the opposite.
I know. And people think like they have to be busy all the time. They have to travel to all these places they see on Instagram. They have to do all this new age stuff that's come out. It's just there to get you all worked up, to make you feel like you're not doing enough in life, to get your money out of your pocket, to make you waste money on useless travel that you don't want to do. If traveling for you is going to some beach somewhere and sitting on the beach and vegging, do that. If you just want to sit in the sand with a book in your hand and read a book in the sun for 6 hours a day on your vacation, do that if that makes you happy. If you want to go and scuba dive somewhere and it's not some exotic like the coral reef in Australia, because that's just so expensive, but if you know of a nice place you want to go scuba diving, just simple stuff, and that makes you happy, then do that. It doesn't have to be halfway across the world. It doesn't have to be in Thailand or Australia. There's all these places you can do it affordably. And yeah, okay, you may not get as many Instagram clickbaits or whatever the hell it is. Who cares? Are you happy? Are you at peace? That's all that matters in this life. That's all that matters.
And do things that, it's important to do things for yourself. And I think it's also important for people to remember, like, do things that are going to contribute. Right? If you're not actively doing something where you're growing, Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's nice to listen to things you like to maybe just decompress from, whether it's a, true crime or,
Yeah.
whatever. But make sure whatever you're inputting is something that's helping benefit and improve not just your life, but your loved one's life. Like that is your responsibility as a man.
Yeah. Your bubble, your bubble around you, which is your house, your close knit friends, your family, whatever it is in your bubble. Yeah. Take care of your bubble. Have your whole bubble at peace. Have the people around you at peace. And yeah, that's what's important, you know?
I think absolutely you're right. Like you find things you enjoy doing, but we've also come to I think a time in society where people are just like, yeah, I just want to do what makes me happy. And that's also the wrong approach, right? It becomes selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't work. There's no I in team, that old cheesy saying.
But
There's no,
there's an M and an E, you know.
yeah. But yeah. If you think you're going to go this whole life by yourself and be happy, I got news for you. It's not going to work either. Everybody thinks, oh, be a lone wolf and only do what you want to do. Yeah. I'll come talk to me in a couple of years when you're alone.
Isolation's the
Yeah.
worst. The
Yeah.
worst.
Like remember, I don't know if you're around or remember that. It was all this, be a lone wolf, be a lone wolf. Like only you and all that sort of stuff. There's this big thing on Instagram about it. And it works for a little bit. Don't get me wrong. If you have unhealthy friends and you have unhealthy coworkers and all that, yes, you need to be a lone wolf away from them. But you sitting
We're tribal though in nature.
Yeah.
So it will not work. We
Not
are
the
not
long
meant to, no, we'll get in our own head.
Yeah.
So being alone at times, yes. If you've
Yeah.
come out of a toxic relationship, a bad relationship with someone, yeah, be alone. Address why you were in that relationship. Why did you allow yourself to be there for 6 months, 6 years, 16 years? Fix yourself first before you start pursuing another relationship. Yeah, that's the time to be alone. Alone in the sense of maybe not going into a romantic relationship, but not fully alone. You still need support. You need someone maybe to understand where you've been, to empathize, not sympathize, but empathize. Right? That is really important as a human. So Jay, like one question, when it comes to those 5 things that I listed, right? The physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social. Which of those 5 areas do you think men neglect the most and why?
From what I've seen, I'd have to say mental. Mental's the biggest thing I've seen in the military and family life and everything. And it's because over the year, you just did not talk about it. Like men did not talk about their mental problems. You were a man. You just deal with it. You carry on. You suck it up, have a drink, do what you ever got to do, but you do not talk about it. Nobody wanted to hear it. When we grew up as kids, you're meant to be seen, not heard. And then you kind of develop that through your whole life. And then when you get older, you just think, oh, I'm stressed. It's like, I remember being told back in the days, like every man's stressed, deal with it. Like join the club. Welcome to the club. Now you're an official man. Okay. But I think it was you that was quoting all the suicide trends. They're the highest for men that they've ever been. The highest for men they've ever been. And you think that's a fluke? No, it's men not talking about it. It's men trying to take gummies every night to numb themselves. It's people just dopamine, trying to get, just keep their minds distracted with this rush all the time that they think they need. And then when they don't get it, they get into this mad depression. And when they can't handle the depression and they end up taking their lives, it's like you have to learn to deal with it. And I don't know, there's just no quick fix. I wish I had the magic answer for people. I really do. But it's taken me like 40 years of dealing with stress, with this, ups and downs, and falling off that trail that we talked about, going down that yellow brick road, thinking it's the perfect trail, but it's that dirt shitty one you got to take to the left. That's the best one for you.
The hardest one, the one that no one's on.
Yeah.
Because if it were easy to become a healthy man, everyone would be healthy.
Yeah.
But you're right. I would say mental is where men need to start. Because if mentally you're in a good place, you can regulate your emotions. Right? That's a big thing. If you're unhealthy mentally, your emotions manage you. It becomes the inverse. So as men, it's so important that we acknowledge, okay, why do I feel the way I feel? Is it something that is presently affecting you, right? Is it work? I mean, yeah, there's always, work stuff. But more often than not, I think the big thing for most men is it's not so much what's going on now, it's what happened before that they can't let go of. And we've talked about this before. But it's something that they're carrying around, something that happened to them when they were young, whether it's a traumatic event or just a way that they were raised, the way that they've been conditioned, the way that they've always managed, that has just compounded things. And whether it's been something that you've learned from your parents, your circle of friends, that carries over into your relationship, your current relationship, all these things end up compounding the issue because we're still not talking about it. And we're not regulating and dealing with things the right way, the healthy way. So again, as that stress rises, we start regulating through the wrong mechanisms, right? Or we have a really small well of self-care that provides a little relief. So we think we're doing the right thing, but we're always kind of chasing. We're always kind of like wondering, why do I feel so empty still? I'm doing all this stuff right. Yeah, but if you're feeling that right now, guys, it's because you're still doing the main thing wrong, or you're failing to acknowledge whatever the thing is that is destroying you.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot from guys. There's a lot of guys that'll come to me saying, "Hey, I've been on the straight and narrow for 6 months and I still feel like shit. Why do I still feel like this?" And I honestly get that a lot. Guys are like, "I haven't eaten a single piece of junk food, alcohol, gummy, nothing. For 6 months, I've been this straight arrow person and I still feel like shit. Why?" And then, like you say, it's like, because you're not addressing as the problem that originated. Could be childhood, could be so much stuff, but you're not addressing it. You know what I mean? And until you address it, like I never did, that shit will just wait for you. And I was straight and narrow for 10 years when I was special forces and stuff like that. Like straight, narrow, clean, athletic, everything. And I was still messed up. I was still depressed and stuff like that because I never dealt with any of the past stuff in my life. So people
You
think,
just had a really good distraction.
yeah,
You're able to get your mind off it because you had something more severe to deal with.
hell yeah.
And I think a lot of the time that's what happens is we're so, and I mean, it's good to be present, guys. I'm not telling you not to be present, but we're in the present. We're so focused on the issues we're dealing with right now, not realizing the reason why we don't have the peace we're looking for, we don't have that happiness, right? Is because not only is the present affecting us negatively, but it's because, and I'm always going to kind of beat you guys over the head with that past, because there's something in the past that you're still carrying that is there. I think we fundamentally always know what it is from the past that's killing us, because it's usually in the voice in our head. So it's either the hurt again that someone did to us, or it's our own failings and the hurt maybe we've done to others, the guilt we carry. And sometimes it's a combination. For me, it was a combination, right? The people who hurt me, the failure I'd become when I was sitting in my cell, and like, what a screw up I am. I'm no good. Like, I'm such a piece of shit. And, I'm a horrible son. And I don't, and it just escalates, right? Those negative thoughts, they escalate. I don't deserve to live. I should just kill myself. All those things. Now, the problem is, for most men, for me, I think what helped is that I was in that 6x8 cell. I was in a very confined area. So my prison was literal. I could literally walk a couple steps and touch the wall, right? And I would hear that door get locked every night and unlocked every night, right? And I knew I couldn't leave that cell until I heard that door open. So my I think saving grace, or what helped me so much, was that my prison was literal. But for so many people, the cage we're in is so big that you don't even realize you're in a cage. Right? The world presents itself and gives you this illusion, I'm free. No. No, you're not. Your stress is so high that you are a slave to your vice. And you can't people say weed isn't addictive. Oh,
I see it is, especially gummies, weed, whatever you call it. Yeah.
if I didn't have a joint in the morning, if I somehow ran out of weed when I was before I had the whole incident happen, before I was arrested, if I just missed a joint in the morning, oh, I was in such a bad place, because it would help me take the edge off.
Yeah.
Let me forget about the past, and let me justify and minimize and deal with the life that I was living at that time that I knew was wrong. And that's what, again, so many men are dealing with. You are in a self-imposed prison right now, guys. I'm telling you, if you're listening to us, it's probably because you're struggling with your mental health. And I think that in itself is it's okay to acknowledge it. But make sure that you accept where you are, address where you are, and then seek some help, seek some guidance. Whether you go to therapy, find God, I think everyone needs a combination of things. I think you need to do something in life. Find yourself back in nature, whatever avenue you want to take. You need support. You need healthy support. Because I didn't become the man I am today because I did it on my own. No. Like I said, I had a correctional plan. I had a parole officer. I had a correctional officer. I had programs that I had committed to. And then I met my wife, and I had, a very small amount of support, but that was so important when it came to my ability to get my freedom again, to become the man that I am. Did not get here on my own. And if you think you're going to become a healed and healthy individual on your own, no. Jay's had help. I've had help. You only get healthy when you ask for help. When you stop trying to do it on your own. Because I think the biggest thing I've always seen with guys trying to do that, you don't know where to start. And even if you do know where to start, there's a process to it. You can't just throw things at it and hope it's going to stick. Yeah, there's the morning, but there's so much more to it. So guys, don't be afraid to ask for help.
And it doesn't take much. People think you have to go up and say, I need help. You don't need to say that. Sometimes if you're just with one of your friends and stuff, and he asks you that, like what men do 80 times a day, say, hey, how are you? And we're all idiots, and we say, oh, we're fine. But if that one time you just say, oh man, I'm feeling stressed, then just say, why? And then maybe he'll just vent to you for 20 minutes, but that will start his journey to recovery. So if I could say anything to the guys listening, when someone says, how are you? Tell him the truth. If he's your friend, if he's one of your close 5 friends or your circle, tell him the truth. Oh man, I feel stressed today. Why? Oh, because this. Like when you ask me, when I go through the winter and I go through my bad things, and you ask me, how are you today? I'm like, I'm starting to get that feeling. And you're like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's do this. Let's do that. But if I sit there and bullshit you and say, fine, fine, fine all the time, you're going to see it in my face 2 weeks later. You're going to see my workout's going to shit. And then by then, maybe I've gone down the wrong path. Maybe I've stumbled or whatever. But if I told you right from the start, Tyson, I'm feeling stressed. How come? I'm just feeling this and this happened and this problem. Okay, well, let's do up a plan. Or I'll sit here and shut up and you can vent to me. Maybe that'll start you down the right journey. But if I could tell anybody is when someone asks how you're doing and he's in your close knit friend group, tell him the truth and see where it goes from there. You know?
Be honest.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard, though, to be honest with a friend if you're not honest with yourself.
Yeah. Being honest in general about how they feel is the hardest
And
thing
I
I've ever
think
done in my
that's,
life.
yeah,
We don't do it.
that was the thing I had to learn myself is like,
Yeah.
I could only get help when I actually started to be honest, and not with the person I was talking to, just honest with myself, to stop lying to myself, to stop minimizing and justifying and escaping. Just be honest. Acknowledge where you are. Acknowledge what's troubling you, what's stressing you. Talk about it. Stop avoiding it. And then in doing so, you're going to be able to get help. You're going to be able to start actually taking care of yourself and implementing the right forms of self-care, and go from this to this. And that's where your peace, your purpose, and your happiness comes. So guys, if you're listening to this and you're dealing with this very issue the wrong way, then it's time to take a moment and write out and acknowledge what's causing your stress, what's causing your unhappiness, how you are currently managing it. What isn't working? Why isn't it working? And that method of self-care you're currently using to manage your stress, what is it? Good, bad? Maybe a few of both, right? Maybe you're managing it a good way, but what are the ways you're currently managing your stress? Then make some adjustments to ensure that your well of self-care is one that contributes to your well-being rather than contributing to your demise and your self-destruction. So guys, thank you so much for listening. This is where the work starts. So till next time, thanks for joining us.